Hello everyone, and welcome back to our discussion on Faust. Today we're going to continue our look at Faust's study, the second part of our reading of Faust. So we need to remember that we're reading Faust's study in sections. So each time we begin a reading, we're going to recall what we discussed last time, as well as looking forward to what we're going to discuss today. So you recall that in our last discussion of Faust's study, Faust and Mephisto finally met, and they iron out the essential aspects of the bargain they're making with one another. That Mephisto will give Faust all of the knowledge he desires in exchange for Faust's soul. As we read today, however, this is going to be our focus. As you continue reading, think about what types of knowledge and experience Faust hopes to gain with the bargain with Mephisto. So exactly what type of knowledge does he want? Then finally, just like last time, at the end, you'll have a pause and reflect discussion question that you should respond to on Google Classroom. And it is this: why do you suppose the devil wants to sign the pact in blood? So you can go ahead and read along with me on pages 889 to 892 of your literature textbook. And once we've done our reading of the text, we'll dive into analysis. At the doctor's banquet tonight, I shall do my duties as a servant without fail. But for your life's sake, or death's, just one detail, could you give me a line or two? You pedant need it in black on white? Are man and a man's word indeed new to your sight? Is not my spoken word sufficient warrant when it comes to my life eternally? Does not the world rush on in every torrent, and a mere promise should hold me? Yet this illusion our heart inherits, and who would want to shirk his debt? Blessed who counts loyalty among his merits, no sacrifice will he regret. And yet a parchment signed and sealed is an abhorrent spectre that haunts us, and it makes us fret. The word dies when we seize the pen, and wax and leather lord it then. What, evil spirit, do you ask? Paper or parchment? Stone or brass? Shall I use chisel, style, or quill? It is completely up to you. Why get so hot and overdo your rhetoric? Why must you shrill? Use any sheet, it is the same, and with a drop of blood you sign your name. If you are sure you like this game, let it be done to humor you. Blood is a very special juice. You need not fear that some day I retract, that all my striving I unloose is the whole purpose of the pact. Oh, I was puffed up all too boldly, at your rank only is my place. The lofty spirit spurned me coldly, and nature hides from me her face. Torn is the subtle thread of thought, I loathe the knowledge I once sought. In sensuality's abysmal land, let our passions drink their fill. In magic veils, not pierced by skill, let every wonder be at hand. Plunge into time's whirl that dazes my sense, into the torrent of events, and let enjoyment, distress, annoyance, and success succeed each other as best they can, for restless activity proves a man. You are not bound by goal or measure. If you would nibble everything or snatch up something on the wing, you're welcome to what gives you pleasure. But help yourself and don't be coy. Do you not hear? I have no thought of joy. The reeling whirl I seek, the most painful excess, enamored hate and quickening distress. Cured from the craving to know all, my mind shall not henceforth be closed to any pain, and what is portioned out to all mankind, I shall enjoy deep in myself, contain within my spirit summit and abyss, pile on my breast their agony and bliss, and thus let my own self grow into theirs, unfettered, till, as they are, at last I, too, am shattered. Believe me, who for many 1,000 years has chewed this cud and never rested, that from the cradle to the bier, the ancient leaven cannot be digested. Trust one like me, this whole array is for a god, there's no contender. He dwells in his eternal splendor, to darkness we had to surrender, and you need night as well as day. And yet it is my will. So we begin to see more of this ironing out of the bet, and in doing so, we begin to also see more of the pride that exists in Faust, and essentially his acknowledging of that fact. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at Faust's words, and he, to his side of things, is keeping up his end of the bargain. So he's honest in regard to what he promised. So he is going to act as a servant for Faust, particularly beginning this very same day, as there's this doctor's banquet that Faust is meant to go to. Doctor, not in the medical sense, but in the academic sense. And before he begins to fulfill his end of the deal, Mephisto wants to make sure that he can trust Faust. And he wants Faust to sign a contract agreeing to everything that they've already agreed to in word. And this is important because it reveals a sense of distrust that exists in Mephisto towards Faust. And rightly so, right? If we think about our legal proceedings today, for something to be held up in court, most of the times it needs to be written down. So Mephisto is being very prudent, but it also reveals that he does not trust Faust. And Faust is going to reveal his annoyance with Mephisto then for this lack of distrust, primarily through the use of rhetorical questions. So remember, a rhetorical question is not one that Faust, in this sense, wants the answer to. He's trying to highlight the ridiculousness of what Mephisto is asking for, right? You think you need it on black and white, meaning you think that you need to have this written down? Man's word, indeed, new sight to you, right? This idea that, have you never before taken someone for their word? And so we begin to understand that, at least for Faust's end of things, he believes that someone's word is their bond. So whereas Mephisto is very distrusting, Faust is very trusting. And Faust has a lot riding on this, right? He essentially says to Mephisto, you should believe me because I'm staking my soul on this. Why would I go back on it? And he continues to use more of those rhetorical questions to illuminate his side of the argument for Mephisto, meaning why he doesn't think they need to sign a physical contract. And he does so by saying this. He acknowledges that his belief, this idea of holding someone to their word, is something perhaps that is just an illusion to him. And so he's giving us insight into his character, this idea of the romantic hero, someone who's very dark and brooding, but also someone who rejects authority and in some cases societal norms, and authority here being represented by that contract. So of course Faust, as our romantic hero, is going to reject this. He believes in the far more noble idea of taking someone at their word. But we also see that eventually he gives in to Faust, or Mephisto, for that matter. He's going to give Mephisto what he wants. And we see that finally here, right? That Faust is very confident in terms of he doesn't think he's going to regret any of this. This is his final argument to Mephisto as to why he doesn't need a contract with him. I don't think that what I'm doing is stupid. So of course I'm not going to go back on it. But we already know from the very beginning, right, that Faust is going to end up eating these words by the end of the play, and he is in fact going to regret what he's saying. So Mephisto, in this sense, is rather intelligent in wanting to get things down on paper. Then we have a continuation of Faust's speech. So the same thing he's saying on the first slide, he's now continuing in the second. And he is giving in here to Mephisto, and essentially he's saying this, rather sarcastically, right, we're going to see in the end, that his basis for not wanting a contract is that it goes against all of these romantic hero characteristics that he embodies. Remember, this disdain for societal norms. He says that this idea of not being able to take someone at their word is haunting. And additionally, that when we try to put these promises, these verbal promises to pen and paper, they die, right? Because it's that legal authoritative side of going with that contract, right? So a verbal contract, this idea of you and I trust one another, that we don't need to have this separate authority between us in the form of a written contract. And so Faust's final attempt to show why he doesn't like this idea is because it kills that trust between you and me. And it also brings in that authority that he as a romantic hero is going to reject. But ultimately, like we said, he gives in to Mephisto, and he does so extremely sarcastically. He's essentially saying, okay, Mephisto, we'll have it your way. And if you're so gung-ho or hung up on this contract, why don't you choose what you want to write it on? Do you want plain paper or a special parchment? Should we maybe carve it into stone, into brass, right? He's being very short with him. And it reveals that he finds this entire contract business petty, right? So if there's one thing I can say that I understand about Faust, is that his romantic characteristics, right, reject authority. And one of the signs of authority in this scene is the fact that Mephisto wants this legal contract between them. Mephisto, not dumb, is going to pick up on the sarcasm that Faust is giving out to him. And he calls him out on this temper, right? Why must you be so shrill? And even though he doesn't rise to Faust's taunting, right? He doesn't pick a certain type of paper or instrument. He doesn't use any sheet. It's the same, right? Revealing that he doesn't care about how they do it. But he does care that a contract exists. And now we see that Mephisto in particular wants to use Faust's blood to sign this contract. And this is a serious symbolic idea that we need to pick up on because it has very real implications, particularly for Faust. And one of the things that we think about when we think about blood is that it symbolizes life. Without the blood pumping through your veins and my veins right now, we wouldn't be alive. And so Mephisto is essentially saying, you are going to give your soul to me in eternity, and I want a reflection of that by you giving part of your life to me now by signing this contract in blood. And we see that Faust, unlike you or I, doesn't seem to take this very seriously. Right? He really hasn't up until now. The only thing he's serious about is the fact that he is very depressed and the fact that he will do anything to get the type of knowledge that he wants. And it really, again, reveals where his head is. He's not concerned with the fact that Mephisto wants him to sign in blood, as you or I would be concerned. Right? His central concern, as many of you noted in your Google Classroom answers to the question, is that he wants this knowledge that is beyond human understanding, and he'll do anything to get it. And Mephisto, again, continues to toy with him. And it's interesting because what he says here is the truth. He's not trying to deceive Faust, but at the same time, he knows that Faust doesn't care about these earthly things. So he's not going to care, for example, about having to sign in blood. It's not going to make any difference to him. This is only going to encourage Faust to long for these supernatural things even more. And we see that this is his response, right? Don't worry, Mephisto, about me going back on my word. You know what I want. And he also here reveals the purpose behind his pact, meaning his bet with him, that Faust wants to fully give in to his passions, right? That's what he's saying here, that all my striving I unloose. So he unleashes, right, all of the passions for this spiritual and supernatural knowledge that he longs for. And additionally, something that should concern Faust, but in this moment doesn't, he reveals that he finds himself just as prideful as Mephisto. Right? And he says, at your rank only is my place. So Faust acknowledges the fact that the way he's going about things definitely reveals something prideful in him. But he doesn't see this as a problem, nor as something that might cause concern later. And we also, again, get to see the torment that Faust goes through. So we might be questioning, why on earth would he give up his soul for something that doesn't last? And we get our answer here, that the catalyst or the spark for all of this happening is that he feels this injured pride. Remember, at the very beginning, we learned that he tries to grasp the spirit of the earth, and the spirit leaves him. And so he decides that he doesn't want to just settle for this earthly type of knowledge that he used to be contented with. No. He loathes that type of knowledge, and he wants something greater. And he continues to explain to Mephisto what exactly he wants. Remember, they're still ironing out the details of their bet. And he starts to list some things that he hasn't listed before. He begins that he wants to dive into sensuality's abysmal land. Again, using that negative connotation. So he wants to dive into the physical pleasures of the world. And additionally here, he also says, let our passions drink their fill. So we could either read this as he's uniting himself with humanity, or that he's uniting himself already with Mephisto, with that use of the pronoun our. And so here we see Faust go deeper again into those characteristics of a romantic hero. So not only has he rejected authority, but he also has this deep longing for self-discovery, and he's going to go on this journey to achieve it. Additionally, we see that he continues to long for things that not only are negative, but that seem on the outside to be very paradoxical, meaning that on the surface, these things don't seem to go hand in hand, but in reality, they can coexist. So, for example, he wants to experience every enjoyment, but at the same time, every distress, right? So it's hard to imagine something that could, at one point, give us pure joy and enjoyment, but also cause us distress. He also wants to experience at the same time great annoyance, but also success. Right? And so these are emotions and experiences that don't seem to fit with one another, but in reality can go hand in hand. And Mephisto, quick to pick up on the fact that Faust is going to long for these things that are outside the human's ability to comprehend. Right? He's going to tell him, take what you want, right? Take every single pleasure that you desire. Don't stop there. Order more. But importantly, we see that Mephisto distances himself from Faust. He doesn't use that pronoun our. He keeps things solely on Faust. Yeah, you do you, Faust, and enjoy what you want. Don't hold back. And this is smart, right? He's very cunning the entirety of the play, because he's drawing Faust deeper into his dangerous desires, these dangerous desires that from the very beginning have caused all of this mess. And Faust, again, continuing to play the tortured romantic hero, shows us his brooding temper and his longing for the unfathomable and the negative, right? Do you not hear? I have no thought of joy. So he's trying to second guess exactly what Mephisto is saying. It's not that I want pleasure in the way you understand it, Mephisto. Give me all types of experience. Give me painful human experience. I want any experience that I can get. And this is important because along with the other lines you're going to see here in yellow, Faust is longing for things that go above and beyond what any human being can experience. He wants to feel pain. And he doesn't want Mephisto to hold anything back from him. And in these lines in yellow, he's going to make use of hyperbole, that literary device of exaggeration, to explain what he wants, right? Within my spirit, summit and abyss. Pile on my breast their agony and bliss. So he's asking from the very summit, right? From the very depths, this abyss, give me everything that you have, Mephisto, until finally, as they are, at last I too am shattered. So he's basically saying to Mephisto, do your worst. By the end of this, I want to be shattered with the knowledge that you give me. And Mephisto here, strangely, tries to warn him. And we can either take this as he's egging Faust on to desire more and to get himself into this hole where he's going to fail and fail early. Or perhaps he's being genuine, because he shares that even for Mephisto, he's had thousands of years to try to comprehend this knowledge, and he still can't. So what makes Faust think that he can? Faust is not going to get 1,000 years. He's only going to get one lifetime. Here we see Mephisto continuing to try to either warn or egg on Faust. And he says, the type of knowledge, Faust, that you want, only a god, only the god, can handle what you want. Right? The rest of the world, meaning you and I, Faust, we need to be content with darkness. And just as we talked about in the last video about light being this symbol for reason and logic, darkness then is a symbol for ignorance, or this lack of knowledge. So Mephisto is trying to reason with Faust and tell him that this lack of understanding is needed too, right? You can't have light without dark, right? This idea, but you can't have this idea of knowledge without ignorance. And Mephisto definitely knows this is not going to sit well with Faust, because what does Faust want? Knowledge. And we see so much here being said, and yet it is my will. So Faust essentially says, I don't care. What you say might be true, but I still want what I want. I'm not afraid of what you're saying, Mephisto. But here is where we begin to question, should he be? That's going to be it for our discussion for video number 21. In video number 22, we're going to finish Faust's study and see exactly how they go about their bet. And additionally, what we see in terms of Mephisto's true intentions, as he's going to reveal them to us, just as he did in the prologue in heaven. Additionally, just like we had with the last video, I'm going to post a question on Google Classroom today, and I'd like you to answer it by tomorrow midnight, so April 28th at 11:59 p.m. If you guys are a minute or two late, it's not a big deal, okay? But I do stress that everyone needs to answer these questions, and the question is this. Why do you suppose the devil wants to sign the pact in blood? So based on your opinion, why do you think he would choose that type of medium in particular? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.